I didn't go to Iraq to win hearts and minds. I went there to kill them, the bad guys. I went to terrorize the terrorists. I consider myself terrorizer, because I believe this is the most effective way to wage the war on terror. You can't negotiate with murderers and bandits. You just have to eliminate them.
Drago, welcome to the Modern Warrior podcast.
Thank you for the invitation. Absolutely honored to be here.
It's an honor to have you, my man. So I have been looking forward to this for quite some time. And what a story you have to tell. So I'm looking forward to you sharing this story and bringing some inspiration, hope, and positive messages to the listeners today through the incredible difficulties that you had to overcome to get to where you are today. So stand by, people. This is going to blow your mind. And so, right, bring us right back to the early days.
Well,
and yeah, where you came from and some of those early life influences that you believe forged you into the man you are today.
Well, the journey is kind of unusual because from a political prison in communist country to being American citizen and a Navy SEAL, retired now. So yeah, the journey was pretty unusual and sometimes painful. I have to admit that. I was born in communist Poland in the early 60s. So my father at the time, he started his career in Communist Party, in Polish government. So my mother on the other side is Christian, and there were clashes in their house all the time. Since I remember being 2 years old, I think, or 3 years old. And my father did not allow us to go to church. So I remember my mother passing me to the window to my grandmother on the street, and that way we actually went to the church. Eventually, our father left. He could not reconcile the Christian values with his communist values, and he decided to move on with his career. He eventually moved to Warsaw, became the high-ranking officer in Polish government, working for Ministry of Culture and Art, and he was responsible for libraries, books, and cultural events, and he was responsible actually for the censorship. So him and his goons were deciding which movie can show up, how the movie needs to be cut to remove parts that are not supportive of socialism and socialist system in Poland at the time. He was responsible for removing art from museums. That was the artists who did not support socialist communist ideology. So that he was already out. I was not under his influence. I was under influence of my mother. So yeah, that's how it started. And then the poverty that I think most of the Poles lived in was today is stunning. Some people have a hard time to comprehend. Even in Poland today, people do not understand how harsh the system was, not only from the economy, looking at the economy, but also looking at just the terror of socialism and communism. If you did not agree with socialism at the time, with socialist ideology, it was not only didn't agree, if you did not support outwardly, openly the socialism, usually you were on their list, and you were under microscope quite often. I'm sure people remember even today, or at least they learn in schools, the lines for bread in Poland, not only in Poland, in the entire Eastern Bloc, were huge. I mean, my mom had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes at 4. She was a teacher. So before going to work, she had to stay maybe 2-3 hours in line to buy bread. if she did not buy the bread, because sometimes by the time she made to the end of the line, the bread was sold out, we just didn't have nothing to eat. We didn't have anything to eat. So we're going hungry to schools. It happened. It's not just, but for me, there was nothing unusual at the time. I thought that this is the way the life goes on. So, yeah, sometimes hungry. So I found my way to feed myself. I found those my classmates, the richer ones, the one whose parents belonged to Communist Party. Then I just robbed them from the sandwiches. I remember it started that I woke up to one of them and I said, I'm not proud of it today, but that was the reality of my life at the time. And I told the kid that, hey, look, tell your communist mommy and daddy to give you 2 sandwiches tomorrow. Today, I will eat half of your sandwich. Tomorrow, you bring 2 sandwiches. If you bring 1, you won't eat. So that kind of...
Was that communicated from a place of threat, or was that a plea for help?
Well, that was not asking for help. But that time, I was kind of bullied a little bit. And I figured out...
For obvious reasons.
Yeah, I was kind of, at the beginning, I was kind of beat up sometimes on the way from school. So I learned very quickly to carry a rebar, pretty big enough to persuade people to leave me alone. And usually what would happen is in Poland, the socialist architecture, there's big blocks, big high-risers, big buildings. And I described it in my book, The Pledge to America, a little bit in more details. But anyway, if these goons were walking behind me, inside that building, usually they didn't come out. The ambulance picked them up. So yeah, that I make a good use of that rebar and steel pipe. That worked pretty good for me. But I also learned at the time. Again, I'm not proud of it today, and I would not allow my children to live like this. But I learned very quick that violence always works. Violence works, always works. If it did not work for you, it means you didn't apply enough of violence. So next time I need to be more diligent and work on my application of this persuasion method. And I was always successful.
Were you under attack? Was it a matter that you were under attack every single day? Were you watching your back every single day, or were they just sporadic instances?
Sporadic. I'd say my little gangster people, that sometimes they were, very often they were communists' children. They thought they are invisible. They thought that their parents can squash any case against them, and that's true. Like in my case, before my father left, I managed to burn the wheat fields, playing with fire, my friends. So the same thing, my father being the communist, he just very quickly squashed everything. They threatened the family that I burned the wheat field. And the same thing happened maybe a few months later when I burned the neighbor's motorcycle. Same thing. My father sent the communist goons to talk to the guy, and he withdrew any complaints. No, there were no complaints. So I knew that legally I can't do nothing to them, but I can defend myself. And that's why I make use of a good rebar, and that kind of taught me that violence works because they left me alone. So I was kind of known for that. I was known that people like walking behind me in the gate of the inside the building was not really wise because usually they didn't come out. So they left me alone. But then also I learned that I can, the same way, I can convince people to convince the rich kids of Communist Party members to share with me their meal, their second breakfast, or what we call it then. And so, yeah, that worked for me because like before, my normal sandwich was just sandwich with, if we had the butter, but mostly was the margarine with a little bit sugar on the top of it, and that was my meal. Sometimes, like we didn't have neither butter or the margarine, my mom used like a tea, She poured the tea on the bread and put some sugar, if we had the sugar on it, and I ate it. There was nothing unusual at the time. And I notice too that kids in my class did the same thing, but they always hide. They didn't want to show outwardly that they are poor or they don't have anything to eat. And I tell you that the poverty was stunning. I remember I was kind of bullied at the time already because my rebar worked so well. So I remember walking from school home, my bus, kind of like missed the bus. So I walked with this little kid who I always gave him hard time. Sometimes I beat him up too, just like not brutally beat him up, but I was mean to him. But then when we walked, and I say, hey, you know what? Where do you live? He said, I'm live right here. So I say, okay, we cross the street. Can I come and see how you live? I was just curious. That was, I think, the second grade. So we did. And I tell you, so when we walked, there's one room, like old building from like 1920s, not fixed. The walls cracked. So I walked to his room. There's just one room. There's a bed. There is a table, cigarette, the ashtray full of cigarette butts, and sink. Sink is like today you see in the high school or in elementary school where the cleaning closet. So I had like no restroom, no nothing. So I can ask you, where do you sleep? I said, well, I sleep with my mom. Okay, but there is a chair. There is one chair at the table. How do you eat? I say, I sit on my mom's laps. So where do you keep your food? We don't have any. We eat every day. So whatever we have. So, even today, it just sometimes brings me to tears just thinking about it. But I told myself, I'm going to help this kid. And then I kind of like was helping him. I was not bullied to him anymore. But somebody tried to bully him. He fell on my fist or he fell my rebar on his head. So if I didn't kill anybody, I think I would be surprised today. But that's how it was. That was a pretty rough time. And this is how I learned to deal with things. This is how I deal with violence, and I learned to apply violence myself. But I have this guy, I hook him up with another kid with the sandwiches. So this other kid was bringing sandwiches, and we never got caught. Like I have to admit, if my mom caught me with it, trust me, I would be beat up. I would be spanked very hard, and then I'm sure I would have to go and collect all the newspapers and empty bottles, sell it, and then pay back for the sandwiches that I extort from these kids. So I never told my mom. I just told my mom that, don't worry about it. I don't need that school anyway. And she was kind of happy. And so that was the beginnings of it. But also taught me to be tough, to be, there is always way, sometimes maybe not quite legal way, but at that time, but there is always way to better your situation. But you cannot just wait. You need to be active. You need to actually be proactive to fix it the best you can. And so this is why I was never passive. After second grade, I learned to be actually proactive. If I wanted to accomplish something, I went after it. And, this is when I start eventually doing boxing. So there was like three of us. I mean, my younger brother, my younger sister, my mom, my father took off to Warsaw to do his. So I lost any contact with my father. We didn't have any contact with him. I didn't have any contact with him until I think when I visited him 2 years ago, to almost 50 years. When I came, he was basically dying at the time. We knew that he will not last long. So I was starting to kind of go and visit him. And I tell you, this guy, it was in, I think, 1990. It was like the communism has fallen. There was no socialism anymore in Poland. But he still was avid communist. He could not be persuaded that communism and socialism killed millions around the globe. But he was not. He's just, the communism was great. He was pissed off that Solidarity trade union kind of interrupt that path of Poland to socialism and communism. But I would like to make one thing here, one small correction. Neither Poland nor any other country in Eastern Bloc at the time, including Soviet Union, they were not communist countries. People need to understand that communism was the path eventually to get to, but they were socialist states. If you would tell my father, who was a high-ranking government official, that Poland is communist, he would get offended. He say, Poland is not communism yet. Poland is socialist. We are building our way towards communism. It was every other country, including Soviet Union. They were not communist state. They were not building communism outwardly. They were building socialism. And you can see in their propaganda from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there was not that much talk about communism, more about building socialism. But the countries were led by communist parties, like the Soviet Union had one, the Poland had one, and they were leading the path to through socialism to communism. So people now I see enamored with socialism. They say like, well, socialism is not so bad. Communism was bad. Communism, like in Poland, Soviet Union, well, they were not communist countries. They were socialist countries, socialist states. Adolf Hitler was socialist, and Hitler's Germany were National Socialist Germany. So socialism, whatever you call it, whether it is Joseph Stalin socialism, Lenin socialism, or Adolf Hitler socialism, they have many things in common, like violence against political opponents, political prisoners, censorship. So that was so prominent in these countries, but people tend to forget that that's not that socialism, that was the symbol of socialism. This is how we seen that socialism. This is why people revolt against socialism, and this eventually got me on the path against the socialist government.
Things changed quite drastically, though, when your father left, didn't it? Because you mentioned there that you could ultimately break the law and get away with it before your father left. And now you're on the path to poverty, or you're on the poverty path.
Yes.
So you had a taste of both worlds there, but it almost seems as though your father's absence or your father leaving brought something more significant into your life: strength, resilience, the fight, the grit, and
yes, you couldn't get without it, because again, we were the lowest on the totem pole. On the top of it, we were branded divorcees. At that time in Poland, there was a stigma. So the kids, like my neighbors, they were not allowed to play with us because we didn't have a father. So my mother and father were divorced. So they had like rozwodniki, we'll call it. So there was like a derogatory name for kids whose parents were divorced. So yeah, I mean, I really didn't have much to lose, but I also I can set my life the way I wanted to, and that's what I did. And my younger brother, my younger sister, they were more peaceful, and besides, because of my reputation, that nobody bothers them, at least not openly. You know, behind our backs, people are always saying, those are these kids you don't want to play with. They are rozwodniki. Those are the children of parents who got divorced, so they are bad. And I was bad. My sister and brother were not. They were pretty good, actually. So they get along with everybody. But eventually, though, it became so difficult for my mother because we didn't have any family in this little town where we lived at the time, that she had to send one of us to live with father, because I was the oldest one. The consensus was that I can handle whatever comes my way. So they sent me there. Well, I didn't last long. I think it lasted a year or a year and a half before he kicked me out back. But I had also glimpse the second time now how the Polish government worked, how the socialist government worked. And also at that time, I learned a little bit more about my father's views, his ideas. And that was pretty scary, because his idea was, if you do not support socialism actively, we will cancel you. we will cancel you of the media, from the books. There was no social media at the time, but there was magazines, newspapers, books, museums and art galleries. So if you didn't support it, you had no right to be part of that society. You should be silenced. And I remember asking, what if you cannot silence? What if these people speak up? Well, then we find some reason to isolate them, put them in prison. And if that doesn't work, it's nothing wrong with physically eliminating people who oppose such a great ideology, because everybody can benefit from socialism. But if these people preventing other people from benefiting from socialism, they need to be eliminated, and also physically, even other methods don't work. That was pretty scary. And also, I remember his racism, and there was a racism prevalent within his colleagues, within the Communist Party, in the PZPR, Polska Zjednoczona Partia Robotnicza. So there was the racism against other groups like Jews was very, very intense. So they if not maybe physically, they verbally attack that group and also other minorities in Poland at the time. Poland is not racist, and people balk on it. Like my mom, she was always fighting with these views, because when I talked to my mom, I was telling what his views are on it. My mom saying, no, you cannot single out a group of people. That's what Adolf Hitler did. That's what socialism in Adolf Hitler, socialist Germany did. And look how it ended up with Holocaust. You cannot single out and denigrate another group who are just good people living amongst us. They might have a different values a little bit, see world a little bit differently, but each of us have a different values. Each of us see the world a little bit differently. So, yeah. And I hear sometimes like, well, the schools, they give us milk and sandwich or something. Well, I never had one milk and sandwich. We had to pay for it. And then because we didn't have the money, we didn't get it. Those, of course, the party member children, they had plenty of money, so they can afford it. They paid, and they had the milk at school. They had this and that. I don't remember that ever being free, but maybe in some schools it was free, but not for me, not for my siblings. So yeah, we deal with it the best we could. Again, I have to underline, I stress it out. I'm not proud of it today, but that was my way to survive. And also told me that, yeah, I can get maybe beat up, but I can always get even with these kids this way or another way. And I did. So they eventually they left me alone, and this is my idea. Well, violence works, always works. If it didn't work for you, you didn't apply enough of it. That worked for me. So eventually, but also witnessed attacks by a so-called pioneers type of groups that Communist Party was creating or supporting. They call themselves anti-Nazis and anti-fascists. And they physically attack people who had different views, or they deem they need to be attacked. Like my uncle, he created his own business. He was making bricks and cedar blocks. So his quality of work was such high that people stopped buying from the government places, but will start buying from him. So he was called and was told to, hey, you need to scale down your production a little bit because you compete with other factories similar to yours, but owned by party members. You are not party members, so you need to scale down. He said, I can't, because I need to support my family. I can't afford to scale down. So they send these anti-fascists and the groups, there's young students, some of them were factory workers who at that time were proclaiming they are Polish patriots and anti-fascists. And they attack physically my uncle. They destroy his equipment. So when he went to police, oh, you are that guy. You don't support socialism. Well, we'll teach you about socialism. They beat him up almost to death. So when he came back, he rebuilt his business, and those anti-fascist groups showed up again that destroyed. It happened like 3 times. Eventually, he ran out of resources. He couldn't rebuild that business, so he had to move on. And but I remember it. I remember him being beat up, and this is why. And he also taught me to listen to Radio Free Europe, BBC, Voice of America. This is where I started learning about the perversion of socialist system, about the censorship, about the real history of Poland, because we didn't know anything. We just if this did not support socialist narrative, was removed from books. Monuments were destroyed. The one that did not support socialist narrative. The Polish eagle had a crown on his head. That was stolen. That was removed from so because it was offensive to socialist ideology, I guess, to the communists running the socialist state like the Poland. So yeah, this is where I started actually questioning what's going on in Poland. I learned a little bit about the history that was hidden from us by communists, like my father, and that's where I actually my view solidified on where I'm standing on political spectrum. So yeah.
But what age are you around this time when you begin to educate yourself?
Yeah, that was like 16, I would say 17, 18, 19 years that I was already listening to BBC. I was listening to Radio Free Europe, Voice of America. And, this is the first time that I started realizing too and thinking why why we are so poor. Look at Great Britain at the time. Now I think it's a different story with Great Britain, but at that time, look at the Great Britain, look at America. These people are free. And I was dreaming like if Poland could be like America, it would be so awesome. And I tell you, I was like fascinated by America, by their freedom. So when I went to live in Warsaw with my father for 1 year before they kicked me out, I used to walk by the American embassy. I had to change the buses there. There was a bus stop. So I loved, sometimes I miss 4, 5, 6 buses because I was peeking to the fence. I see these big fancy cars. There was also like a glass case where you can read information about America, what is happening in America, how the life looks like. And I tell you, so every time I was getting on the bus after reading about America, I was like in the dream state. I was like, that's what we need to have in Poland. But maybe one day I can visit America. I can go to America. And if we cannot change Poland to make it free, I'll just live there. But it was a dream. It never crossed my mind that I will ever come or allowed to go to America. Please remember that the fence, that iron curtain that was built was not only concept. It was physical barrier. We could not leave Poland. Poland and socialist states in Eastern Europe have become like a big labor camps. And you had to work. You had to have the ID on you, the ID that we have today. IDs is just one piece of cardboard in my name here where I live. No. That was the whole booklet. So I remember, so it was like who I was born, who was my father and mother, who was their father and mother, what kind of group we belong. So we are either classified as a physical worker or intelligentsia. And then, your entire history of your either school or your work. That's what you get when you got 18 years old. So 18 years old, you had to have this book on you. If you didn't, and police were just walking patrols, they had the right to stop you for no reason and check your documents. If you didn't have this document, they had the right to detain you until they figured out who you are. And there were people snatched from the street, just, for the hell of it, but by the police. There was not police, it was a militia at the time. They call it militia. So so I had to have one like this too. And they had the entire history of you and your family in this book. So if you were intelligentsia guy, especially if your grandparents and parents were intelligentsia, you could expect some trouble because they didn't like. You had to be physical worker and patriotic, communist, and a member of either the Polish kind of like pioneers type of organization, where the youth, the communist youth, whatever they call it, I think ZSMP, whatever. And they, if you were not one, usually they look at you like down, that you might get yourself there. They could get you in trouble. So you were more in danger if you were opposing communism than if you are fighting on the street. Like at that time, fights on the street were quite common in Poland. I moved to Lodz with my mom later, so we were fighting very often. I will come back to it later, how and why. But we never worried that police can stop us. We're worried that if you have somebody political in your family, like my uncle, I just mentioned about it, the anti-fascists destroy him and his business. So you are more afraid of that than fighting on the street. Fighting on the streets, the cops just like, well, I'm not going to chase the guy. They just walk around. People, when they see 2-3 people fighting on the street, at that time, it was quite common. So people just cross the street, walk around, and move on. There was like somebody, oh my God, there's 2 people fighting, need to call police. No, it's like nobody cared. It was so common. Because please remember too, there was 15 years, I was born 15 years after Second World War. The generation that experienced the extreme violence during Second World War, they were the prime a part of the society in Poland at the time. So for them, violence was really nothing unusual. They hated violence, but really sometimes maybe from the experience in the past, they didn't know what to do, or just like careless, just across the street, let them fight it out and go on. So yeah, we eventually, after training the box in Zielona Góra, I moved on to Karate Kyokushin. And when I moved to Lodz with my mom, then when I moved to Taekwondo, because I liked their way of fighting, I liked the way they were teaching fighting, or the way they promote the teaching. So basically, you can practice as much as you want in the gym, but if you don't go on the street and don't fight on the street, nobody knows how good you are. Yeah? Or if you are good or not. So on the street, you have no rules. So we learn to practice on bombs in lots, just instigating the fight and practicing our technique. Please remember, at the time, we didn't have cameras. The technology was not there. So our cameras were our own eyes. So we just with a group of people say, okay, so I'm going to go beat these 2 people. So this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to fight. And you later critique me what I did wrong or so. So then you just go and instigate the fight, and you start the fight. You beat the guys up, and then your friends from my friends, they was like, okay, you did this too low. You kind of wait too long here. So there was like a reviewing the fight to make one out, so we can make ourselves better fighters. That's why when we fought in the gym, it was like no stress, but just fun and I would say laughable sometimes. And so eventually I ended up fighting in the first Polish Taekwondo Championship, and I remember that it was so fun. It was like no stress. I see the people being all stressed out and sometimes even scared, but like for me, it was like a toying, playing with the situation and playing with their fighters, the opposite fighters. So, and I got disqualified. So when I was fighting for the first place, because I knocked out I think 3 guys are knocked out, and that shouldn't happen. That was against the rules, I guess, and because I hit too strong. So the last guy I knocked out. And for the first place, so the judge came to me and said, look, you punched him, and it was so strong that he's still unconscious. He was just laying there. And you are being disqualified. He's going to win the first place. You're going to take the second place. I said, well, okay, it really didn't matter much to me at the time. And kind of funny thing is the judge came in, and it's just like So he was still laying on the floor, and he's like, and winner is, and look down and say like, this and so. So again, I think I met this guy later on because he was good taekwondo fighter. He was good technique, had a good techniques. It's just maybe my street habits kind of prevented me from getting a first place. And I never had bad feelings towards the guy. He was awarded the first place, and more power to him. And hopefully I can shake his hand one day and apologize for the not quite maybe fair fight with him at the time. But he was a good guy. He was a great guy, I would say. Good technique.
So eventually though, you did manage to get your way out of Poland. What was that like? How did that come to be?
Prison. So at that time, yes. So my mother was of course involved in Solidarity. When Solidarity was being created in 1970, 1980, 1979, 1980, she was very active. She actually organized in her school. She was a teacher, the group of Solidarity members, and so then I got involved in it too because I was fighting quite often. They were asked to help protect Solidarity officials in my city in Lodz, because there were sometimes the secret service, the Polish secret police, dress up in civilian clothes. They like to disrupt those meetings. They like to beat people up too. And also this anti-fascist group that were supposedly just the workers and students who were upset about anti-socialist socialist direction of Solidarity. They supposedly they could not stand it. They just acted up, but they were just good Polish patriots who wanted to prevent Poland from veering off the socialist path. And they were usually attacking our activists, people, and the speeches or demonstrations. Sometimes they mixed up with the crowd and they attacked people, make a big, and then Solidarity was blamed for it. So they asked us to actually provide some protection for it, and we did. But then the martial law in December 13, 1981, when in one night, but they already had the lists prepared for a long time. The Communist Party had those lists. They arrested, there's different estimates, from 5,000 to 60,000 people in one night. But those arrests happened at midnight or around midnight on that day across entire Poland. So people were snatched from their houses, homes, wherever they were, and sometimes leaving children unattended in their apartments and hauled to jail. And I remember the way that was explained to us at the time, and I witnessed it in my city, in Lodz. I was not on the list of prominent activists, so me and most of us from Taekwondo Club were left alone. But all the prominent figures in Lodz, in other cities too, but in Lodz, they were arrested. So it was explained to us, they are not arrested. We just helped them to be safe because they were in danger. They could be endangered by other people who are so upset with them. So we just put them in so-called internment places where they are internees. They are not prisoners. They have all the amenities they need to live. We just keep them there for their own safety, for safety of our society, because they could be also disruptive. They were basically the key word here is they were potentially dangerous to socialist states. So we just detained them, or we just interned them. They will be kept in the internment camps, and this is how this thing was explained to us. And we knew that this was bullshit. We knew that they were just arrested. They were sitting in prisons. They were sitting in places where, like, there's like Soviet Union gulags too. Again, they didn't call it gulags, of course, but that's what we call ourselves. Right? Between me and my club, just like, hey, he's sitting in gulag. So we decided to do something about it. We decided to actually start printing information, what's going on, trying to find out who was arrested, where he's kept, because families often, for a long time, they didn't know where their loved ones were isolated, which prison they were sitting in. So we printed out. I knew nothing about the conspiracy at the time, so we decided, okay, we printed out. Let's go spread out. So we just got whoever we could. We showed these leaflets, and we just tried to spread around the town. So of course, we were very quickly the secret police zero in on us and arrested us. So this is how I got for printing, I think, couple few editions of that little leaflet. They didn't call it leaflet, but today it look like the leaflet. It's 2 pages, maybe 4 pages, and so I got a 3 years prison sentence for trying to Article 48 of martial law, and yes, so I was sent to prison, and I was interrogated. And then after I was sentenced to 3 years in prison time. They sent me to political prison in Hrubieszów on the Russian border. So this is where I spent my sentence until the amnesty came in, and they started releasing political prisoners. They didn't release all of them, but most of them at the time. So that was my kind of eye-opener, full-blown eye-opener on socialism and communism, how dangerous these ideologies are, and how much power the government has. The power could, I'll come back here for a second. When I was in the 5th grade, they started teaching Russian. The 5th grade in Polish elementary schools, you had to learn Russian. So, I was not the best student. There was nothing political about it. I was not the best student. So I was a little bit tired, and I didn't like to do homework. So now I say they are giving us a Russian language to learn. And I always hear in the home that the Russians, they are occupiers. They are like political occupiers of Poland. They're just like evil people. So communists and Russians. I don't think so like this one. I mean, I used to be a big as a Russophobe. I'm not a big Russophobe anymore. But I respect Russian people, because the Russians, they suffer the most from communism. Every country that had a contact with socialism and communism suffered. There are many deaths, but no other country than Russia itself suffer as much under communism and socialism. We're talking about millions victims of socialism and communism in Russia. So my perspective will that change now. But anyway, so in 5th grade, so I piped out to the teacher, like, why do they teach us Russian language? We don't speak Polish very well yet. Our grammar in Polish is not the best. We don't want to learn the language of the occupiers. Oh, wow. I was kind of 5th grade, so we're not that little. But the teacher, there was a lady, Miss Kathleen, something like this. She woke up, grabbed me by the ear, picked me up from the bench, walked me to school principal. They put me in the corner. She yelled at me that I am that bad man. So they call police. They call police on me. So police on the way to school, they stopped by my mom's school. She was a teacher in different school. They detained her. They brought her with them. There was like 2 civilians, one in uniform, and my mom. And they started yelling at us. If my mom doesn't instill more love for socialism in me, me and my siblings will be taken away and from my mom and placed in the orphanage, where government will properly give us proper education about socialism and communism. My mom was scared. I was scared because my mom was crying. She was scared. But then I realized that much power that government can come in, take your children away, or put you to prison for like something you didn't do. It was very disturbing for me. That shaped my views of the world at the time. So in prison, eventually I left prison, and I tried to set my life again, but just did not work. And I knew I was being arrested on the street, taken from the street sometimes in the evening. We're coming back from practicing taekwondo. So with my friends, and the civilian car pulled in. Cops came out, civilian clothes with the badges. They handcuffed me, throw me in the car, and they drove me for 3-4 hours around the town. They drove me outside the town, in the woods, in the like little roads. So yeah, I was a little bit scared, but the first time they did it to me when I was in prison under interrogation at 2 o'clock in the morning. But so then I was really scared. But this time I was just like waiting to see what will happen. And after like 2 or 3 escapades like this, I talked to my mom that I need to get out of Poland. It's not safe. And I always look up to America. For me, there was the free country built of personal freedom, of good people, of you can live your life the way you want to live, as long as you are not harming other people. So I didn't know what to do, but I said, well, I'll give it a try. I will go to U.S. Embassy and I ask for help. And then I found out there's a lot of Solidarity members who spent time in prison. They went to different embassies and asked for political asylum. I was given political asylum from America. And I remember when I was told, got the mail, that it was granted to me the political asylum, that I need to get a passport and get out of Poland. I remember my entire world changed. Suddenly, the Poland that was always gray and dangerous became like, you know what, F you now, to the not the Poland, but to Polish officials, to communists there. I was just like, now they can't touch me, they can't do anything to me. Well, they still could, but my idea was like, I have a ticket to freedom at the time, and so when I had to go like fill a bunch of documents before I got that visa. I had to before I could get a passport. So one of them was a recruiting office. So I had to go to this, I think it was different. They didn't call it a recruiting office at the time. It was some kind of commission to, whether you are acceptable for the Polish military for draft or not. And like with us, I think they want to get rid of us. So there was like no issues whatsoever. They yelled at me, one of those major, I think he was like, he's sitting at the desk. I went up there by this like little fence side and I told him what I want. He just like got really upset. He just like, people like you should be serving Polish army until this Polish symbol, this Polish eagle, and point out to this little eagle with no crown on it. I say, well, first, let me kind of educate you, Mr. Major. That's not Polish eagle. It doesn't have a crown. And you know that the crown was stolen by Bolsheviks. And that Polish eagle was sent to Siberia. But I would not want to be in your shoes when this eagle comes back. And he will. So, yeah. And I remember when I was leaving, he gave me that stamp. But I could hear him stomping and screeching, even when I was on the street. So yeah, he was just yelling, calling me names every name he could think of. So yeah, that was my way to freedom. And I remember when I was working with the passport and immigration, the permit to leave Poland. There was passport one way, so I had I was not allowed to return. I was just, the stamp it says, I think it will be on my website. The stamp says I can cross Polish border one time only. So basically out. So yeah, at that time, yeah, when I was leaving Poland, I was saying goodbye to Poland forever. I mean, I was, I didn't think I would ever be able to come back and see my family. And so, yeah, I left. By the way, a little bit here, because it's changed. Poland is different now. Poland is free, beautiful country. Poland is the safest country in Europe right now. So I was actually in May of this year in Warsaw testifying in case of the judge who sentenced me to prison during communist times. And he's being charged with communist crimes, crimes against Polish nation, and crimes against humanity. So these charges have no expiration time in Poland. So Poland today is actively pursuing these people who were implementing the communism in Poland at the time. Though in the case, so I described my case because actually my wife went with me, so she was sitting in the court, and but eventually I also appealed to court not to put this old man in prison now, because this is decades after the fact. His old man was likely sick, and sentencing old grandpa, I would say, or somebody who looks like grandpa to prison time for maybe what he believed was the right thing to do would further divide Polish society even more. So we don't really need that. That thing is past. We need to concentrate on the future. And so yeah, that's like on the side. And I came to America. Not knowing anything about America. I didn't speak English. The only thing I knew is that we are free. I'm free man now. So I can be whoever I am able to be. And I couldn't be much more than a janitor at the time. I became janitor, and I was pretty happy about it. It was my own job. I was getting my own money, and I was able to pay for my apartment. But again, it wouldn't happen if not help from American people who didn't know me from Adam. They had like no idea even who I am. And here I am. And so these people were coming to my apartment, bringing me clothes because I didn't have it. I had a bag of dirty clothes, not dirty, but bag of old clothes. So they were bringing me clothes. They bring me furniture to the apartment. They helped me find a job. Everything that I have today, everything that I own, I owe to America and American people, including my freedom and including my family too. That's I still sometimes bring tears to my eyes when I think about it. But there was not without the incidents too. So I didn't speak English. In Polish there is no th word, right? Thank you. So I couldn't say thank you very well. So one of the Poles told me, hey, just say thank you, use F, like foxtrot. So use F, like thank you, but say it very quick and it'll be good, no problem. So I say, yeah, sure. So one of the churches, there was quite a few churches we were invited to. One of them, the pastor came at the end of the mass on Sunday. He said, let's meet this Polish immigrant here. He's trying to make his living here. Let's help him out. Let's meet him. So this group, after the mass, gathered around me. He brings the big plate of cookies. I grab one cookie and try to say this thank you. And the F, it's like a fuck you came up. And that was just like, I knew that something wrong. I said something wrong because I hear the gasps around me. And I look around and say, what did I say wrong? And the older gentleman comes in and say, what he's saying is thank you. And he looks at me and say, thank you. And I was like, thank you, try to say it. I don't have this problem now, but I still have some problems. Even now, today, with my wife, we just got married. And she asked me, like, what do you want for dessert? You want some nice dessert? I say, yeah, I would like to eat Kimberly. She's like, look at me, say, who is Kimberly? I say, who Kimberly? I don't know who's Kimberly, but I wanted that same dessert we just had a couple of days ago in the restaurant. Can you do that? She says, you're talking about the creme brulee, not Kimberly. And for me, it sounds the same. So she kind of got upset for a while, but she was relieved that I was not talking about eating some Kimberly. I was talking about eating creme brulee. So I still have challenges. And my son sometimes too. He say like, Dad, you think you speak fluent English now, but so that means that I know that you can say sometimes entire paragraph with correct English, but sometimes you don't. So yeah, I still have my own struggle because I learned English on my own. I never went to school to learn English. So I was working, I had a map in one hand and bucket with water and cartoons or dictionary in the other hand. This is how I start. This is how I learn English. So, but yeah, I made my way out through, and I was living good life. I was living a really good life. It was hard, but with help of American people, I succeeded. And when the first Persian War broke out, this is when I realized, I owe something to America. I owe to America everything. So I think it's time for me to put my life to hang my life in the safe space and go and fight the war for America. And that's why I went and joined military. I didn't think much about Navy SEALs. I just wanted to work to fight wherever America needs me. And my idea was, well, I will go during the wartime. After war, I will come back and resume my awesome life. I really had a really good, great life. Again, it was not only my own doing, but also with the help of my American friends, and who became like family to me. So yeah, I joined the Navy. That was kind of like a little bit different stories with it too. If we have more time, one day we can talk about it. And eventually, yes, I did end up with the Navy SEAL teams. And so instead of staying there for 5 years, I stayed 20. And I retired from SEAL teams in 2011. Now I am software engineer, so I'm working with the computer programs. I'm programming in C#, C++, that's my favorite languages, .NET, and ML.NET, machine learning.NET from Microsoft libraries. I love it. So yes, I'm here in a very sweet spot. I have 2 children at home still, and my wife, she's finishing her PhD in engineering and AI, artificial intelligence. So I resume my life after 20 years within SEAL teams, and I live in great life. I owe to America everything I have.
Moving into the SEALs, though, wasn't exactly a smooth process, was it? You can tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was not quite a smooth process because I didn't know about SEALs or anything at the time, but I was skydiving instructor in civilian war at the time. So when the SEALs came in, and I was already in process of getting my paperwork done to join the Army. Because for me at the time, Army was everything. I couldn't distinguish between the Navy, Army, Marine Corps, Coast Guard. For me, it was just Army. So as I went to the 2 Army. First I just, and then when I met Navy SEALs, I said, hey, you know what? Go and change your paperwork, go to the Navy. Navy is great. Tell them that, go to Navy recruiter and tell them that you want to join Navy SEALs. So I said, okay, you guys can jump with the parachutes, so that would be a great job for me. So I said, okay. So I didn't have to do it first because I make friends with Army guys, the Army recruiters. But I say, okay, well, I do it because I really want to be involved with skydiving and all that stuff. So when I got the paperwork, I walked to the Navy recruiting office next door, showed them the paperwork, told them the Army already complete most of it. But I would like to, they said, what would you like to do? Yeah, I would like to be Navy SEAL. I'm like, oh, Navy SEAL? I said, yeah. How old are you? Well, I'm like 32 going. Well, the cutoff age for SEAL is 28, but I tell you what, you sign this contract here, you sign this thing with full paperwork. When you go to boot camp, they made the SEAL out of you. I was like, I didn't really care much about it. I just wanted to serve America. It didn't matter where. I would go wherever America needs me. So I did. But I said, okay, yeah, that's fine. So I show up in boot camp. It's like, well, you're way too old. But I was doing so well that, but I had a kidney stone too. So while in boot camp, so that was recorded in my documents. And so I passed the test for SEALs. And the final medical examination before leaving boot camp, the guy said, well, you can't go to SEALs because you had a kidney stone. You have to wait at least 1.5 years or 1 year, whatever it is. So we don't disqualify you, but we just delay. So you need to go do whatever you were designated to do in the Navy, and then you can apply for SEAL program. I said, okay. So I did so well in the boot camp. I was #1 recruit in the entire graduating batch. I got Military Excellence Award. I was fascinated by it. Learning about Navy history, about history of America. For me, there was such a breath of fresh air. I loved it. I was just like eating it up. So yeah, I graduated as number one recruit in this entire batch, graduating batch. So then I went to A school to become parachute rigger, and the same thing. I graduate as a number one, or I think, or two in my entire class. I wanted to be useful. I wanted to be good at it, but at the same time, there were Navy SEAL on the base in Millington. He was like not a recruiter, but he was like a motivator at the time. His job was being SEAL motivator. So I went to him. I say, look, Petty, sir, he is no longer alive. So I can say he was Petty Sir Les Barrios. I say, Petty Sir Barrios, I would like to apply for SEAL program. I passed all the tests in boot camp, but I had a kidney stone. And they tell me that I have to wait a year at least, and I'm already old. So can we do something about it? I mean, can we maybe get a waiver? He's like going to say, well, we have like two waivers for you, one for that kidney stone and one for your age, because we are way too old. So I'm like, okay. But he said, bring me your medical record. Those before electronic records were in place. So I ran out to medical, asked them for them. He wrote me the check. So I just showed them that I need to get my medical record and bring it to the office up there. So they gave me then, he came in and said like, okay, so I want you to leave my room. Just wait, I'll call you in a second. So I can hear him shuffling, and I go try to listen, he's shuffling to the papers, and he say, hey, come on in. So I come in. All right, let's find this document that says that you had a kidney stone. All right, let's look. So I go one after paper. Do you see any? I say, no. I say, well, are you sure you had a kidney stone? And he's like shaking his head. By this time, I was 100% sure I didn't have a kidney stone. I know I pissed it out, so, but I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe I misunderstood. I think I didn't have a kidney stone. Okay, so let's concentrate on getting you a waiver for your age. So me, a couple of friends were actually they were going to the program. I was still like in limbo waiting. And I think because I graduated in a very high ranking from both schools, from boot camp and from the A school, that I think they gave me that waiver because of that. And yes, my orders came in to report to Basic Underwater SEAL, the Immersion SEAL School, to BATS. And I remember like, wow, that was great for me. Though I didn't understand very well how the training looks like. For me, I thought it would be like a prison place where you just disappear for 6 months. They beat the hell out of you. If you pass it, then you may become a SEAL. Well, nothing like that. So when I find out that I can go to after normal activity day, we are on our own. It's just you can go, if you have an apartment on town, you can go to your apartment or you can go to your barracks. You can do whatever you want to do. And I was like, wow, that's so easy. Because I survived one prison, the communist prison time. So even if this is conditions like prison, I shouldn't have a lot of problems. So, but yeah, I did have problems. For me, that was my age. Being 32, going 33 years old, that was really kicking my butt. And that physically. So instead of going to bars like these younger kids, hey, Drago, let's go drink. I was like, well, no, I need a Bengay, rub on my muscles because I can't move and my muscles are hurting. So I still go out with them, but not as often. And we eventually, so that my biggest challenge was the physical part, not so much mental, because I expect harsh treatment. I've seen the guards in communist gulags, in communist political prison. So they really didn't faze me. They yell at me. I expected it. They yell at everybody. So yeah, and so 6 months later, I was injured, so I had to go and start my class over. I was injured before the harrowing, so I had to start over again. I graduated from class 185 with a great group of people. We are friends still today. And after graduation from SEAL training, from SEAL the selection, I was assigned to SEAL Team 2 and eventually to SEAL Team 4. And that's when I had a chance to work with people like Drago, Doolittle at the time. Great people, with Rob O'Neill. I served with him. So I was in Iraq with Marcus Luttrell when he went there first time. When his platoon rolled through it, we did, I think, quite a few DAs, direct action missions with his platoon. So yeah, that was a great 20 years, great ride, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
But again, that was my, you think that you can pay your freedom back and you can't. It's always something more to do. Always think, how can I support my country? How can I make America better? How can what else can I do even after you retire? And also I realized that you serve America in different ways. You don't have to actually be in the military. All the good citizens that doing good job for America, they serve America, and their service is as important as ours was. And by the way, I am American. I am not something hyphen American. There is no Polish American. I am American. I'm proud of it. And this is the only country in the world that actually does accept it. You show up in any other country, including Great Britain, you will be the Polish American. You will be the Polish guy. Not here. I mean, here, they don't see me as a Polish American. They see me as American, and this is awesome. So yeah, that's the only country in the world that you can be what you are able to be, and there is nothing standing in the way. And yeah, some of the experiences from Poland, from the rough time, it helped me, not to give up on my dreams. So I'm still living my American dream, and America is great. It's a very unique country. Some people don't realize that, but it is like a beacon of freedom for people around the world. This is why everybody wants to get to America. Everybody wants to be free. I only advise to do it the legal way. You cannot just sneak through the borders, breaking the law, and expect a welcome. You need to go to the process, so we Americans can verify that you are somebody who actually can live here. You are not some criminal or some murderer. That is important. So that verification process needs to be put back in place.
Drago, thank you so much, my man. Absolutely love this conversation with you, and I'm sure the listeners did too. And for all listeners who would love to hear more about your story, grab your book, or to check out some of your work, where can they check you out? Where can they grab your book? Give us all the links.
The Quest to America, that's the book. And that meaning of this book is, but there's also in Polish language that was written. I didn't mention one. Do you have a second? I need to mention that because I had the chance to work with GROM, Polish Special Forces. I think those are the highest level of special forces I have seen around the world, besides of SEALs, right? I always say the SEALs are the best, but no, their level was on our level. They were great. And working with them in Iraq was a huge eye-opener for me. I didn't know anything about GROM at that time. But when I worked with them, the cooperation was so smooth that the differences, basically, they disappeared. We were just one unit. We were one task unit. And wherever we need the GROM commando or SEAL commando, we just put them there wherever they were needed. There was not like, oh, the SEALs are here, the GROM is here. We were just one unit. And this is why I think that was the big part, that medal awarded for me for contribution to Polish society, Polish army. But I have to stress it out that contribution is also part of the GROM, who were so well trained and so well prepared for combat that everything was easy for us. So that honor of this medal belongs as well to GROM and other fellow SEALs who are working with us in Iraq, who was from my group, and they still remember till this day whenever I go to Poland. They know I go to Poland to visit Poland. They say, "Hey, say hi to this guy. Hey, say hi to that guy." They know these guys Polish Grom guys by the name, and vice versa. When I go back, I hear very often from this guy, hey, say hi to this fellow CEO or that other fellow CEO. So yeah, that's I couldn't sign off this podcast before I mentioned Grom, because it was a great honor for me to serve with them. It was a great honor for our CEO units to serve with these guys. Awesome guys.
Amazing. And your Instagram as well?
Yes, Instagram, Drago Dzieran. That's just like my name, Drago Dzieran. Same on Facebook and same on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn, I'm being heavily censored. So every time I say something about socialism or communism, they close my account. So I have to rebuild it.
Yeah. God damn it. Anyway, no censorship here. Everything here is going to be produced as it has been told. So thank you for sharing it so poignantly and so spiritually and so deep. And I just love your energy, your purpose, your drive, and fuck man, we need more men like you in this world today, Drago. So thanks for being an inspiration for us to step up.
It was an honor to be on your show. Thank you.